It's Craig this time.
Yeah. Craig, I we called out Alistair on you paying the tab, so yeah, I hopefully he paid his tab last time, but it looks like it. I think we threatened him enough last time.
Yeah. He kind of accepted that he needed to pay his tab. He wasn't happy about it because I think he was worried about the conversion rate because he had quid on him and other stuff, but we got him to do it. We figured it out.
Yeah. Because I mean, how do you walk around with a monocle and you drink tea with your little pinky up, and then you don't pay your tab? It's like, come on, dude. Or he's one of those rich people that like assumes everybody's gonna give them free shit. You know what I mean? Like celebrities that they just expect things to be free for them.
Mm-hmm. You just sometimes you have to ask, like, how do you live? Which, everybody, is what we're going to be talking about today, also known as the Boy and the Heron on the TBD Tavern.
Yeah. And hi, my name is Silver Blaze Sex, here with my buddy and co-host, the Wandering Ambu. And we went to go experience this amazing movie. I just watched it last night, and first thing I told Ambu was like, "When are we recording this?" And we immediately jumped on today to go ahead and record. Today is what, 3-4 days before Christmas, by the way, Ambu?
Yeah, about 4 days. Well, 3 days, I think,
When do you
for
celebrate?
you, right?
When do you guys celebrate Christmas?
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Let us know in on Twitter, whatever it may be, because we're curious. Because we've had this conversation. I know for
Yeah.
me, mine is typically Christmas Day. My parents are actually surprisingly celebrating it on 2 days from now, so they're actually celebrating on the 23rd. But usually
Oh,
we
wow.
celebrate on Christmas Day. Well, my dad did the whole your mom doesn't want to cook. And it was like, I don't mind helping cook because usually I try to help, but sometimes moms are just like, no, I'll take care of it. And it's like, but I'll help.
It's like, no, but you don't know how to do it like this, and you don't know this, and you don't know that. I've been there, dude. I've been there. You're fine completely. We celebrate Mexicans celebrate it on the 24th, and then the 25th is kind of like we rest from all the partying and drinking from
That's fair.
the 24th. And we do all the church and all that, caroling, all
Mm.
those traditions on the 24th. So so it'll be this Sunday when we're going to be celebrating. So happy holidays and happy everything, whatever you guys are celebrating. Just as long as you guys are safe and spending it with the those you love. That's all that matters, really. Though by the time that this recording comes out, it'll probably won't be out until the 1st. So happy New Year's, guys!
Yeah, Happy New
Hey!
Year! Hey!
Happy New Year's, guys. Yeah, I hope you all are having an amazing new 2024. We're just talking to you now from the past and hoping that future Silver and future Ambu are okay. Hopefully we're good.
Future Ambu might be a little bit out of it because of the eggnog that he might be drinking or continues to drink. I know like eggnog is super divisive for a lot of people. I'm personally a fan of
I
eggnog.
love eggnog, dude. I love it. I love
I
it. In
feel
Mexico,
you.
we have this thing called rompope, which is alcoholic eggnog, but it has rum in it, and the nuns make it. That's right.
Nuns make it.
Nuns, yeah. In order to make money, they developed rompope. So yeah, they would sell it, and that's how they would pay for expenses for the convent, orphanages, and stuff like that. Women, yeah, women in history, guys. Making the world spin.
Man, I think, isn't it so typical alcoholic eggnog, like I guess we call it the Pennsylvania eggnog style, is like what, whiskey and eggnog, right? Usually,
Mm-hmm.
I think the rum's interesting. I like that the rum's fruitiness goes well with the taste of
Oh,
eggnog.
dude. Oh yeah, that you bring a bottle of that anywhere in my family's houses, including my own apartment, it'll be gone, bro. Okay, and you don't have to mix it with anything. It's all ready to go, and it has to. If you Google rompope, rompe, rompope, Rompope. No, hold on. Rompope.
It's okay.
Oh no! Oh no! They'll find out I'm not really Mexican. Fudge!
You heard it here, everybody. It's been
No, no,
deception the
no,
whole
no,
time.
no, no, no. Rompope. Rompope. There you go. Jesus
Mm-hmm.
Christ. Anyways, as soon as you Google it, you'll see the first bottle that pops up on Google is going to be the image of a nun. And like one of the, now that I think about it, she's kind of dressed like the nun from that scary movie. It's fine. We're not gonna go into that either. But yeah, so it's basically boozy eggnog. It's really
Oh,
good.
okay.
We just pour it in a small liquor glass with some on the rocks, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really good. But it is very strong. Let me tell you, those nuns were not holding back when they were making the recipe. uh, but at first, there's big brand name brands that people can buy in Mexico.
Yeah.
But you can now buy in the States here. Actually, the last time I bought a bottle was here in San Antonio. But then again, we're right close to Mexico. But when I went to Guadalajara a few years ago, I actually went to a convent where the nuns literally have their distillery there. So I bought a bottle. It was like a recycled bottle too. Like it was a bottle that was used for actually the brand of the rum. They just
Oh.
recycled the bottle of the rum and they put the eggnog rum, the rompope, and they filled up that one bottle, and that's what I bought. It was great. It was fantastic, dude. It was delicious. And it was a good thing too that we had that bottle that one time, because I don't know if I've told you the story once, and I'm gonna tell you really quick before I derail this more, because we were supposed to be talking about the boy and the heron.
It's totally fine.
But that time I went to Guadalajara, we actually stayed at a house that was supposed to be haunted. So here are three grown ass men, right? And staying in this house, scared shitless. Okay. And good thing we had that boost to kind of like, convince us to be able to actually stay, because we were like in our early 20s. We were broke. We didn't have a lot of money, but this dude's family had a house there. So we said, yeah, let's go. Uh, but we were so scared. That house was so creepy, and so many things were happening at night. Like you could hear the noises, you could hear the steps, you could hear things opening and closing, you can hear voices. It was creepy. We ended up all sleeping in the third floor. Like literally, like we it was it was a three-way spoon, okay? And I sat, your boy Stanley was the meat. And we were all together in bed, because you could hear people like literally outside the door on the third floor. You could hear people walking by the door, and it was creepy at night. It was creepy. So thankfully we had that bottle of rompope to give us a little bit of courage and actually put us to sleep at night. But it was quite an experience in that house. It was super creepy. It was super scary.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's how it went. And listen, when you're scared, man, being cradled by your bros, is it weird? No, I don't think so. You know,
Wait,
right?
wait. Being cuddled by your bros?
I, so again, the entire house was haunted, so we ended up sleeping on the third floor, all the way upstairs, because it was the only room that it wasn't, at least
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of haunting stuff was happening on all the way up there. So we all slept in this one bed together, and I was in the middle of that sandwich.
You were just being smart, because hear me out.
Yes.
You were trying to
Okay.
protect one
Yes.
another. Think about
Mm-hmm.
like staying together, right? Because in most
Mm-hmm.
horror
Mm-hmm.
movies, like everybody splits up, most people
Mm-hmm.
die, and then you
Thank
got
you.
like the one or two that
Thank you,
that do
Ambu.
survive.
You understand me.
Whereas yeah, whereas like all of you are huddling up together, you're protecting each other, you're keeping yourselves like safe. Um, it's
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable. I think it's fair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So that
Mm-hmm.
that's all I'm gonna say on that matter. But that there's my rompope story, followed by a ghost story, followed by a very intimate story.
All this to say, everybody, that there's some special mead that we have for the holiday seasons right now. If you go to the bartender and you ask them for some rompope ale, it's a special deal that we have going on right now.
Mm.
Skitty is like crazy, is like skilled, crazy skilled with her magic, and has created that in celebration of
And you
the
won't have to cradle
holidays.
your homies for it. Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can
Unless
cradle
you
each
want
other.
to,
We
if you
do.
want
We,
to.
Skitty did create the corner in the back over there for if you need some cuddling sessions because you're going
God.
through a rough time. You can go do that. But beyond that, just enjoy, have a good time.
Yeah, just don't turn into what Twitch is turning right now, where apparently now the meta is to be half naked. So just go do your thing, but don't be weird, please.
Yeah, we don't have enough sensor bars for that. I'm just
Or
gotta warn you.
pixelated. Apparently now they're pixelated.
Pixelated?
Yeah, it's the new meta. Yeah.
Oh my god.
It
Well,
yeah.
so, okay, well then why don't we get into it? So today, everybody, we're talking about the movie that is called The Boy and the Heron, or another name for it, I believe in Japan was actually How Do You Live? Um, a little bit of context before we dive into the movie. The book How Do You Live is a novel that was written in 1937 by Genzaburo Yoshino. It was a a life philosophy book for boys. Um, what makes it special, or what makes it significant for this movie, is this was the book that Miyazaki's mother gave to him and inspired him to want to become a filmmaker. Um, and so that's why you kind of get a little snippet of How Do You Live as a book in the movie as a tie-in to everything. So, How Do You Live, or The Boy and Heron, the movie, is a love letter to that, but there's really a lot more to
Oh
it.
yeah.
Like, significantly more. And, I gotta say, like, it's just mind-boggling how beautiful this movie is, how much thought is in it, and also, it's one of those movies where there's so many different interpretations that you could have from seeing it, that it has probably spun several different conversations I've had with people about several different ways of looking at the movie. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as we were just talking earlier, we read this one article how it compared the story to our last episode of Godzilla -1, and it blew
Mhm.
my mind. It blew my mind. I was like, holy shit! I was like, it's that's true. It's definitely another story of discovery of oneself and a man, same as this, a boy. Trying to find themselves in this new world that they're at right now.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and, and all during World War II, which Miyazaki tends to make a lot of films in. And just before recording, Amber and I was just asking them, where does he think Miyazaki's head is when it comes to Japan's history and its role in World War II? And from what I've seen from his other movies, and including this one, I don't really see anything, I guess, net negative or political. But he does address a lot of like small things here and there, like in this movie, right, The Boy and the Heron, and how. Well, actually, let me not get too ahead, because I think the point I want to talk about is it's already pretty ahead of where the story kind of starts. So bring us back, Ambu. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get
No,
ahead.
you're
I
good. I
tend to do
mean,
that all the time.
no, so a little bit of background. Another thing too to keep in mind with this movie is, so us the man, I'm even stumbling right now. Really, we were talking. So the thing with Miyazaki, and I don't know if people have watched the Kingdom of Madness documentary or if you've read a lot of stuff regarding Miyazaki. I'm a Miyazaki nerd. I go deep dives in on a lot of Ghibli stuff because I'm a mega fan. My first movie was Mononoke no Hime, or Princess Mononoke, and that's my favorite movie of his of all time because of what it explores. And the thing that I love about Miyazaki movies and about Miyazaki himself is he, in all of his movies, everything is about the duality of life and how contradictory human nature is. Um, and to and the reason why I bring that up is because, like in Mononoke, for example, there's no real antagonist in the movie. Everybody, in some form or another, believes that they're doing something good and right for the world, but they're not afraid to get their hands dirty. We see Ashitaka with trying to protect um, nature and protect the way that the world is, but then also seeing his anger and his violence versus the way that he tries to find balance in peace and coexistence. But then we see on the other side I forget the lady's name um, right now at the top of my head, but we see how she is trying to develop and improve the world through um, molting iron and building guns and protecting her people, and then giving a place where lepers could work and be able to feel human. And then you
Mm.
have like the monks who are like, they, I guess if anything, they're kind of like the bad guys because they want to kill the deer god to get the head for infinity, but for I think the emperor for infinite immortality. But like none of the characters are inherently bad or good people. They're
No.
just human. And the movie
Yeah.
is an examination of where do we find the balance between respecting nature but respecting advancement in human life and human ways. And so that's how I felt about The Boy and the Heron, is that like the whole entire movie is kind of again exploring the contradictions and the contradictory nature of
Mhm.
humanity, or more specifically in Japan and in World War II.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so
And the
mhm,
culture and I think and again, not to get ahead, right? But I think one of the biggest things that we see, right, how everybody has a role to play,
mhm.
and they just kind of accept that role, is when that what's it called, that bird, the bird that's dying,
Oh God,
and he
yeah.
gives that he gives that very like kind of like I don't how do I describe it? It was really sobering, sort of like speech where he basically says something along the lines of like, I didn't choose to be this type of
Hmm.
creature that eats these small other defenseless creatures that we'll talk about in a bit. I was put here and I just accepted my role and this is what I'm supposed to do. I go, those things go out, I eat them, and then this lady with fire kills us. It's just kind of like a cycle of him accepting his role in
Hmm.
in it all.
Well, and I think that's just in general what this movie talks about with everything is like the reluctant acceptance and then the fear of moving forward and things changing. Because
Mhm.
he also mentions how like the young ones are forgetting how to fly because of
Yeah,
being stuck in this world.
true.
Um, and it's interesting because it kind of ties into the whole like sticking to the old ways of life that we know versus taking on new experiences or accepting that some things are going to be forgotten, and
Mhm.
who knows what is born from that. There's no certainty that life will get better, but life continues to move on even when the old ways don't stay.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's what this movie really touches upon, is like learning how to let go and move forward in the uncertainty. Because in the beginning of the movie, we see we're basically the movie just hits you hard and hits you fast.
immediately.
You are hit with the fire bombings of Tokyo, which was a big precursor um, to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is when America was trying to wear down Japan by firebombing Tokyo every night for I think several weeks. And
Mhm.
there was over 900,000 people, I think, perished or were severely injured from the bombings. There was significant damage to where a lot of homes were lost, a lot of people were displaced. Um, and in this particular instance, Maito's mother was working in a hospital that was hit by one of the bombs. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so there's this moment where you see, oh god, it's such a beautiful animation where Maito is told to stay home, but he doesn't, and he runs towards his mother. And the way that the movement is shot is like him falling into his turmoil and into his
Mhm.
despair. Everything begins to blend. There's no cohesive like ground or anything that you see. everything is blending together because of his panic and
Yeah,
his
that narrow vision, right? That you
yeah,
get
yeah.
when you just you all you know is mom, fire, need to get to her, right? And
Hmm.
everything else just kind of narrows and blends together, and you get that like just tunnel vision of like and they you're right, dude. It was such a great animation, even though like it's Miyazaki still sticks to that sort of like older anime
Hmm.
style. You can still see like the technology in the shot, right? I my favorite One of my favorites was when he's going up the stairs, right?
Yeah.
Dude, that was shot so cool. I was like,
Hmm.
this looks amazing.
Yeah. No, he actually, I believe he had somebody guest animate on that part. Um, I forget the name of the guest animator, but he actually had someone do that because he wanted a more fluid, free-forming movement. And I think that paid
Mm.
off significantly
Oh
because
yeah.
it
Oh yeah.
literally allowed us to capture Maito's turmoil in the possibility of his mom dying. Um,
Yeah.
and that tunnel vision, it was just beautifully done. Um, and real quick, so that way I don't like go on my 5 minute tangents to get used to.
No, no, it's
Uh,
just it's hard not to because
yeah,
for example on this one, dude, go for it because I mean the colors. Yeah, we haven't even touched the colors that we got to see the blending of the colors.
yeah. Well, we saw people screaming. We saw firefighters burning. We saw people digging through the rubble. We were seeing the chaos around him, and that's what makes it terrifying. Is not the fact that it's his tunnel vision and not just Maito's despair, but seeing how blinded he was to everything around him. But as a viewer, you had to experience what was going on around him, and it's scary to think that that was something that was common during that time for those periods of few weeks. But the what I wanted to tie into this is that one thing that we have to keep in mind, not just its exploration of like Japan and the symbolism, this ties it a lot into Miyazaki's personal life. Miyazaki, in an interview, and I'm paraphrasing a quote, said one of his earliest memories, I believe, was the firebombing or firebombings that happened in Tokyo, because I believe he was born in 1941 and he was like 3 years old when this was happening. And um, the mother perishing, because spoiler alert, everybody, she does die in the fire. But it was
Or
kind of
does she?
Oh, oh, you're right. I'm just trying. I might be trying to throw you off, but but there's also symbolism in like his mother in that. Whereas Maito's mother may have perished, Miyazaki's mother did not perish from. I believe she had cancer at the time,
Mm.
and so there's that whole connection that happens where it's like the possibility of losing her and having to grapple with accepting that and also being in denial because we've talked if you read the 5 stages of grief, denial is the first one.
Mhm.
And for Miyazaki, that was the case, but for spoilers in Miyazaki's life, his mother did live and she got to see him grow up and become the animator that he was.
Mhm.
So he was lucky with that, but I think but in terms of might, though, it had to be we didn't know whether his mom did or didn't die.
Right, right. We don't know. It. I'm not gonna say anymore. So.
No, no, go for it. You can go for it. We're trying to go in depth with the movie here. Just let it out. You know what, Skitty?
No,
We need another one over here. Special ill stat, please.
no. I kind of want to go back though. Still, the colors like right after. So, as he runs to the hospital to try and help, even though he's just a kid. Let's be honest, like that hospital is on fire. There's nothing that he can do. If the firefighters couldn't do anything, and all the other adults couldn't, he's not gonna be able to do anything. But of course, in his desperation, he goes. But I like how Miyazaki. I like all of his films. Don't get me wrong. I'm not as much of a Miyazaki buff like Ambu is, but I can really appreciate what he did with creating that panic and that blend of like colors of like how when somebody is in such a when you're like in that sort of if anybody's experienced like a situation of like panic of like life or death sort of scenario, and how like everything just gets motion blurred, right?
Mhm.
The way that he does it and shows the panic in not just what Mahito is experiencing, but also how things are actually happening on the background, and how he's able to just like blur all these colors together. Man, I don't even know if I'm eloquent enough to be able to explain to you guys how what he created was able to add to the panic, to add to the experience of what's happening. It was in some people might not appreciate it too. I can already see also as I was watching it, I could already see people not being able to appreciate either, being able to appreciate it either, because it might look like bad animation, but it was
Mhm.
intentional, guys. I assure you, it was intentionally made the way that it looked in those scenes. It was meant to look distorted. It's meant to look
Mhm.
horrid. It's meant to look weird. It's meant to look bad because it's a situation of panic, of something historical that was horrible, right? I mean, all wars are horrible. All
Yeah.
violence is bad, guys. All of it. No matter whose side you're in, right, wrong, all sides are wrong when there's war. That's just a fact. But the way that he was able to create all that sort of distortedness and in the audio, the music, the scoring, the sharp sounds of the score, of the scores and the music, everything was just right at the beginning, like Ambu said. This movie grabs you by the fucking, not the balls, but by the balls of your heart. If your heart had balls, guys. Oh, did you see my post recently, by
Mm,
the way? If my heart, oh yeah, you did. You liked it. If
yeah,
my heart could orgasm,
yeah, because of the Miyazaki Ghibli like what if
another
thing.
Miyazaki thing. Yeah, what if for
Bro,
Link,
but
right? For
okay.
for Legend of Zelda. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I would go by it grabs you by the collar of your shirt and says, "Pay fucking attention right now, because
Nah,
you're
nah,
about to
nah,
go for a
nah,
ride."
nah, nah, nah. If your heart, guys, if your heart had balls, okay, if Miyazaki grabs your heart's balls and just drags you, all right, like right off the bat from the beginning of that
Oh my
movie,
god.
and he just says, "Hey, you feel this? You feel my hands around the balls of your heart? Okay, well, I'm this is just the start. This is just the start, motherfucker. You're gonna love this. You're gonna enjoy this. It's gonna be great. All right. And yeah, you know what? It's gonna suck, but at the same time, you're gonna be like, "Thank you, Miyazaki. Can I have another one, sir?" And that's how this movie starts. It just grabs you by the heart's balls, the balls of your heart. Sorry, and we should make that into a hashtag. Hashtag heart balls. No, wait.
Hashtag balls of the heart.
There you go.
Oh god.
All right, I'm gonna stop
But
talking. Go ahead. I'm
no, no,
before
no, you're good. But like, I
I
agree with
cancel
you.
myself.
I don't think it's bad animation. I think it's really cool when animation is willing to bend the rules, right, of what is
Yeah.
established. This is the same thing with Devilman Crybaby. If anybody has seen or hasn't seen it,
Oh
but like
man, love
that
the man.
animation, yeah, right. Like
Yes.
it was so
Yes.
good. But that's what I love.
Yes.
But like that's what I love is like it's so fluid of an animation, and you are made to feel what Mahito's
So
feeling when he's running
dynamic.
to the hospital. It's yeah, like if any of you have been in a situation where you are running to something because it's an emergency, or like you are dealing with a situation where like you want to get there as quick as you can, tunnel vision,
Mm, mm,
100%. There is
mm,
no
mm.
way you're not going to like have tunnel vision no matter how calm you may be. You're gonna want to like get there, and you're gonna be focused on getting there. You're gonna do everything you can to
Mhm.
get there, and that's what is so good of the sequence is like when we see how determined he is with like his dad saying stay home because your mother's hospital's been hit, and then Maito comes back, changes into his uniform, and then like starts running, and then you see everything. This movie doesn't flinch from giving you the details that like others are suffering too, but you're made to only see it through the very small lens of Maito running to where his mom is. and then even seeing the way that the fire just consumes like his face and everything, and the way that it looks as he's like watching this happen, it's heartbreaking and it's gut wrenching. But you're not given time to think about it because he tells you that what is it like 3 years into the war, his mother's hospital has been bombed, and then 4 years into the war, he moves to the countryside, which
Yeah.
again is very similar to Miyazaki's story because even though his mother, I was wrong, his mother didn't have cancer, his mother had tuberculosis, but they moved to the countryside during the war because their home had been bombed, and so we see him, and his dad move up to the countryside, and they are greeted. Oh, is her name Natsuko? Is that her name?
The sister is Natsuko, correct?
So he's greeted by Natsuko, which is this is a point of contention, I think, or not a point of contention. This is a point that Silver and I have talked about, where it's like trying to be understanding of the past, possibly versus our perspective. She's his aunt that's now married to his dad, like, and is pregnant. Like, can I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I gotta go on a tangent here, but literally, the dad did. It's like you would think that the dad would take time to mourn and to grieve and to like try to navigate losing his wife, but instead he decides the best way to grieve is to have sex with my sister-in-law, get her pregnant, and then get married and all that. And you know, I feel for Maito here because it's just like, you know, it's your aunt. It's also like she looks like your mother, and it's kind of awkward to have to call someone else mother that reminds you of your dead mom because she's your aunt, that your dad decided this was a great way to grieve my wife by knocking up my sister-in-law.
Yeah. Yo, what's that meme of like, oh no, my wife's died. Anyways. It's like, anyways, look at her sister. She looks the same, you know, it's just a different model, different color. Yeah.
Could you just imagine? He probably at some point was like, "You remind me so much of her." Like, could you? I have no doubt he's told her that.
Sorry, something just popped into my head, but I don't want to say it out loud. I'm just gonna keep it to myself, guys. Anyways, I want to move that past. No, I'm not. Today. Not today, guys. I will maybe get canceled on episode 100 of this podcast, but not today. Yeah. Well, again, so to be culturally sensitive, Japan does tend to have this weird thing where not it's weird. Again, I apologize. That was rude. It's not weird. It's, you know, their culture where, you know, people get married and automatically, you know, if you lost your mother or whatever, and a man or a woman marries, you know, somebody, they immediately become like your mom or your dad, and that's how they're supposed to be addressed, mother or father. But it's still, you know, that, I guess, had they not been related, I think that it would have been less cringy. But this situation, like Ambu says, it's. I think it doesn't help that it's your fucking aunt, dude. Yeah. It's your fucking aunt, and you're expected to call your aunt mom now, bro. Yeah. I mean, if this kid is already having a hard time still grieving for his mom, that shit right there is not gonna help. And again, I know, you know, every culture has its thing. You know, me and Ambu coming from our own different cultures and us having our own different also things, and maybe that seems weird to people. The things that, you know, that from your Chinese background and my Mexican background, some people will be like, "Whoa, that's too weird for me. You Mexican Chinese people are weird." But I don't know if we have this. To be honest with you, I'm just gonna say it. I don't think we have this. I don't think if my mom died and my dad married my tia, I don't think they'd be like, "Sí, mijo, I want you to call her mama now." I was like, "No, bro." I'm like, "No, man, it would be too weird, dude. I could not do it." And I don't think my dad would make me do that shit.
And I'm sorry if I offend anybody saying that, especially for those who may be listening in Japan. Like, our goal isn't to be is to be culturally sensitive and to be aware of things. So if I am out of the loop here on something and it's still like
Blame Silver.
whether
Blame
no,
Silver.
you can cancel me on that. It's fine. I
No,
should
no,
be
no.
canceled about
You can
something at some
cancel
point.
Silver. Cancel
But
Silver. Fuck
like,
this guy.
but like the thing though, and I think that's the thing that bugs me is like uh, it. I think what makes me feel gross about it, especially, is the way that she says you should call me mother now. When I
Yeah.
feel like as a stepmom, you should allow the child to make that decision
Mm-hmm.
and to just give them the space to come to that decision if they want to call you that. Because I
On their
think the
own.
goal is to
Right.
never replace the mother
Mm.
in any
Right.
way. But
Right.
it feels so just jarring that she's immediately like, call me mother. When he hasn't met her, he
Yeah.
hasn't like spent time with her. He hasn't done like he's probably seen her in family get-togethers or anything like before that, but he's never really like spent time with her
Mm-hmm.
to get to know her to where it would be comfortable to call her that. It's just more like, I guess I have to call you mom because dad decided to bone you down and marry you. Like, so that I think that's just where I feel off about it is like it's and it's not Natsuko's intention to make him feel that way,
Oh yeah, no, I
right?
don't think so. No, I don't think
No,
so.
but it just comes off that way of like you're trying to get him to call you something that he's not ready. It's obvious he's not ready to call you that, and he's still grieving his mother. So
Yeah.
like that was I think the thing that was drawing to me, and I think you and I talked about that, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like that's just too soon and too out of pocket for me.
Yeah, it's too forced. I agree with you 100%. It's definitely something that you should allow that person to naturally say rather than kind of like force it upon. It's like, all right, son, well, here's your new mom, and she's like, yes, call me mother from now on. I don't care about whatever emotions you're working through right now because lost your mother who you were really attached to. I'm your new mom, slash that one away and just plug and play, bro, because we look the same, right? So I don't know, man. It's too rough, man. Get it, plug and play, because the dad plugged and never mind.
Oh, no, but it's
See,
true.
that's why I try not to say what I'm thinking. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's just it's just sad because it's one of those things where it's made very clear that Maito is grieving because he's very silent. Because for most of the movie, he doesn't really talk. The first like half or
First
third of the
part.
movie, he doesn't really talk much. It's through nodding, it's through whatever. And what I like about Miyazaki's animation, I think is so good is he creates his body language so well to show that
Yeah.
Maito is like hella uncomfortable. This boy is like, I guess I have to move here, and I guess I have to live with my aunt now, and I guess we're a family. And
Yeah.
then, oh god, the part where she makes him like feel her
Oh
stomach.
yeah, we talked about that. It was very cringy. She asks him to feel her tummy because that's where the baby is now. That her father just, you know, it was cringy for me. I'm sorry. Like I don't know
Yeah.
why, but that scene to me was it was a little too extra. I can't imagine again where I would be in a situation as a kid like that, and then out of nowhere, a grown woman grabs my hand. It's like, here, feel the baby. I understand that, she's probably excited about the baby and maybe trying to bring me in to her life and all of us to be a family. But,
Mhm.
kids are not adults and they can't process things the same way that we do. And again, it's strange, man.
It
It's
is, yeah.
it's weird. I was like, what is this? Are we going? I was like, Miyasaki, is this about to turn into a hentai? What's going on? What is this? What is this?
But like but I agree. I think that's what made it also cringy for me too. Is like not only is she trying to say I'm your mama now, she's like, here's your like sibling. And I'm sorry, but if I
Who's
don't know
also your
you,
cousin?
yeah, it's like
What?
it's like if I don't know you that well, I'm not gonna be all excited like, hey, I've got a sibling now and a mother, and I just met you like 5 minutes ago. It's no. You do that to a kid.
Man, not even a Disney movie is that giddy about shit like that. Come on.
Yeah. But like, it's just yeah, I can't fathom. I feel for Maito's. I guess what I'm gonna say is like, I just feel for him in that he's being so pushed into just accepting this world now and his reality. But another thing that I think is interesting in that scene, because you were bringing this up, and it was a discussion on like it was like Western Imperial, like America and like everything, or like Japanese customs, is when they stop the trolley, the bike trolley, as they're having this conversation to honor the soldiers that are heading out, because there's two soldiers who are being conscripted to the war.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is I think this is during the tail end of the war, and I think that's what makes that this whole entire situation so significant is they look older. I think they were like older guys who were being conscripted to serve. And I think that
Yeah.
was the thing that was it was trying to show is that like this was a losing battle, and that's
Yeah.
why the families were silent, and I think that's why it was significant was like showing that everybody knew Japan had pretty much been defeated in this war,
Yeah.
but they still had to go anyway.
It was like right in the mid. So the plot happens around 1943, right in the middle of the Pacific War, and Japan was already running out of people to throw to
Mhm.
to die because they weren't winning. That's why they came up with the whole term kamikaze, which is what we discussed on the previous
Mhm.
episode. So at this point, they're pulling everybody, old people, young people, everybody. So around during again this Pacific War, they're just throwing moths to the fire.
Yeah.
And it's strange to me how Japan had this, because I don't think everybody thought about it, but Japan's always been to me, and from an outsider's point of view, this country who, and I think I've touched about it also in the last episode, a country that likes to have like a united front on how they see things, and they choose to not show the rest of the world the imperfections or the dark side or the ugly side of the country. And and even how we talked about it on Godzilla minus one, how they even hold them to this standard that if they don't choose to go get themselves killed, they basically brought dishonor just for surviving,
Mhm.
which is horrible. So um it's it was weird to me to see them in here in this movie,
Yeah.
to have them stop the whole cart just to like bow down and be like, okay, well, thank you for serving your country, which is cool. I mean, but I don't know, man. It's sad to watch. It's just sad to watch because
Yeah.
that those two men that they were on are gonna die, dude.
Yeah.
Because it's still not the end of the war. They still it was 1943, so it doesn't end until 1945.
Yeah. Because yeah, I think it's 1943. Because technically, some people argue that like 1939 is when World War II was really starting to ramp up. So that makes sense. But the thing that I find interesting, and this movie is all about symbolism, right? Like just to let everybody know, in my opinion, The Boy and the Heron's storytelling is not as important as to the symbolism and the themes and the motive that are being explored in this movie. And I think that's how the movie was meant to be kind of looked at. And I think that's why it's effective. But what I love about this is the symbolism to me in this moment is it's sobering in a sense of again showing the futility of holding on to old customs, into old traditions, into honor,
Mm,
into pride, right?
mm.
Because or nationalistic pride. I think it was an example of
Nationalistic pride. Nice. I
the
like that. Yes.
futility of nationalistic pride in a sense of the honor of serving for your country, the honor of doing right by your family by honoring, the emperor, and to try to bring victory for a country that knew it was pretty much on its last dregs. And so I think we see this moment where there's a reluctance in the faces of the two that are leaving. You see it in the moment where they're kind of like, oh, I guess we bow and we do that to say thank you, because I think there's that, like what you said, I don't think we're meant to see the moments of the doubts and the uncertainty of doing this. I think, like you said, um, and I do think sometimes Japan wants to paint a very homogenized perspective to where everybody is in full support, everybody is like 100% backing everything that the country needs, but we're allowed to see the contradiction in that, in these two leaving and the reluctance in their face, and everybody being quiet, because it's a sobering moment of the realization that that the war is not over, and who knows when it will be over, because now they have to go, and it's clear that they're not ready for war, they're not fit for war, they haven't been through training, but they're being forced to go.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what that moment symbolizes, from what we were talking about earlier, is kind of like the contradictory and the duality of life during that time, with the nationalistic pride and then the uncertainty and the sadness of being forced to serve.
I mean, imagine that happening to us right now, you and me. Like right
Mm-hmm.
now, let's say war breaks out between the U.S. and I don't know Russia, whoever. Take a pick. Whoever hates us right now, everybody, I guess. Uh, and you and I have to abandon our lives, with our daily jobs, and we just kind of have
Mm-hmm.
to put everything on stop. And then we're forced to just go enlist and be cannon fodder because you and I are not we're not soldiers, dude. Like we're
No.
two fucking, otaku, geek, nerds, gamers, streamers. The most action I have seen was with my company. They made us do PT because it's like a military bank.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the most action I've seen. You know,
I mean, I
uh,
guess I played like, I don't know, Halo and Call of Duty,
I
but that's
guess then
like
put me in
I
the Air
don't have
Force. Then yeah,
experience.
send me fly some drones. I got you. Yeah, bet. But I don't mean to put us down, bro, but I'm gonna be honest.
No, dude.
I don't have high hopes for you and me surviving, bro.
No, dude. I know I would be. I would not be a soldier. I'm just flat out like, I'm doomed. If I get put into the army, I'm gonna be like, well, it's been a wonderful life, everybody. Thank you very much. Like,
I mean, in a way, I
um,
guess I'm glad that I'm 38. I don't think I can enlist anymore, except for I think only the army and
mhm.
the navy will take me because I think I'm too old for the Marines and I'm too old for the Air Force. I think only the
Mm.
Navy and the Army would take me at this point, but I think for only like 2 more years. And then
I
once I hit 40, I can't enlist.
I
So,
forget what.
boo. Just kidding.
I think I still have like a couple of years left to where I could be. Because I think is it 35 when it
I
ends?
think it is 35. Yeah.
Bro, I got
Yeah.
like a year and a half left. Let's go.
You better hope. You better hope nothing happens, bro.
No, but it is true though. I mean, I think about like the thing that I as much as I might have my gripes with our country, and I'm not afraid to say that, like, I think what's great is we've been able to have the ability to have the opinion and say, why are we
Hmm.
serving and what's the point? And we aren't,
Yeah.
our draft hasn't been utilized like it was in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, to where it's like, we can be critical and not be afraid to be critical within society. Our soldiers aren't made to feel guilty for surviving.
Right.
Um, I wish we had better healthcare for our soldiers and everything,
That's the whole other
but
thing. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but like in
100%.
general, like we're taught that those who survived, we say thank you for what they've done. Um, so I think it's interesting, to talk about that in contrast to like what you brought up and what we talked about in Godzilla minus one,
Yeah.
where survivor's guilt is a big thing.
Yeah. It's weird, right? Like, here it's here with us, and it's funny how we say thank you for your service for surviving, but over
Yeah.
there it's thank you for what you're about to go do. Instead, it's like thank you for going to die.
Yeah.
It's different. It's crazy. It just hit me right now. It's like,
Hmm.
oh wow, we say thank you for coming back and serving your country, and over there is thank you for serving your country by dying.
Which is crazy, right? Like, and
Jesus,
it's
dude.
so sad to think about that. But yeah, so that's just a very sad moment. But you know, and then we go into from there,
Mhm.
we go to where they land at the estate, and then she takes him up the front entrance, and it's a very traditional Japanese home at the time, with like the sliding rice paper doors, the like big expansive wooden pathways, the beautiful like paintings and everything. And then you've got like the 7 or 8 grannies that are just like all over his dad's bag, excited, and then welcoming him in. And then uh, Natsuko brings him to a room to open his dad's suitcase. And then again, we're reminded of like how bad it is out there because they're super stoked about canned foods
Mm-hmm.
and
Canned meat
maybe some
and
small
tuna.
ration of, I
Yeah.
think, sugar or flour, and then the excitement of maybe being able to make something sweet and tasty.
Dude, how
Um,
excited they would get for cigarettes, dude.
yeah, that was crazy.
Tabaki. They were wacky for the tobacco. Um,
Thank you for the tobacco.
they were so excited to just be able to smoke some tobacco, you know, from the dad's bag because yeah, they brought all these goodies from Tokyo. But yeah, these little tiny like troll like old women are just super excited. They can even smell the food, which is weird to me how they could because it's canned food. But I
Well,
guess.
I think it's because they're magical, which we'll talk about later.
Uh-huh. I wanted
But
to say
again,
though. Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go on. No, no, please go on. Go, go. Stellar.
Nope, they're not gonna bully me this time. Go ahead, Umbu.
Fine. The only thing I was gonna say was what I like about this movie is the duality of life and what we're given of like the happiness and the joy and everything. But then we cut to a scene where Maito sees the old man, this old man with his, I think, dying wife, and the way that he's like with her and not joining in. And again, it reminds me kind of like of how Maito feels. Kind of like, why is everybody so happy and excited over all this stuff when we're losing people? Like that's what it translated to me. For him was like you could see how he related to that man in that situation. Whereas everybody's like, oh my gosh, rice flour, we can make cakes and sugar and everything else.
Yeah,
And he's just like, people are dying. It's a very, again, like I love that this movie shows those contrasts.
it does. It does. No, the only thing I was gonna say was that I do want to just, I guess, correct ourselves or correct myself. I don't want you guys to think before you watch this movie, or if you do watch this movie, Mahito. I don't think that he's this very emotionally damaged kid. So, like at the very beginning, when all this is happening, yeah,
Mhm.
it's very traumatic. But then afterwards, when he has to kind of like they have to move away from Tokyo, and they have to, you know, his dad does what he did with his woman, and they're starting to start this whole new family. Mahito actually puts that sort of like very serious boy face of like I am responsible. I am. I know how to respect my elders. He's not a serious like quiet, but serious, just well mannered. You know,
Mhm.
because throughout the entire experience, from like in him meeting Natsuko, right, and seeing his dad off and everything, because he right after they meet Matsuko, he had the dad heads off to work on the factory. But from everything that they do, from the point they get to this new little village to the point that they get to the house, he's just very like stoic, very formal, very courteous to everybody, right? And when eventually Natsuko finally takes him to his room and he's alone, he allows himself to then be that vulnerable kid of like just being overwhelmed with everything. And you can see that sort of very serious, very stoic, very strong boy just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
falls, that wall falls and allows himself to just kind of fall asleep, right? And I think Natsuko sees a little bit of it because she comes back in, brings him like a little snack and everything, and he sees his sleeping face, and then she's like kind of reminded, this is a little boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because she sees his face, and all you see is this little boy's face, sleeping, looking so vulnerable, right? That has gone through so much, right? A big contrast of the boy that she met when the dad Soichi and Mahito get there. He's a complete different kid, right? But I just wanted to say, like, it's not like we have this very delicate kid throughout the beginning of the movie, or even throughout the movie. He's a very strong kid for what he's gone through, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think he's also, because of that, repressed a lot of those feelings that he's had
Yeah,
from
I
what's
do.
happened to him.
I do see what you mean. Like he is kind of he kind of is trying to like be dutiful, like the dutiful son or the diligent son, right? Is that what you're getting at? And that
Yeah,
yeah.
he's trying to
I
be
think
supportive,
yeah. I
but
mean, yeah. I get what you're saying. I would say that it's a mixture. Like I think they're both combined. There is that like he. Well, I think you touched upon it. I don't really have much more to say to that. Um, but yeah, I don't know why you felt like you had to correct yourself, but or you're
I
worried
just
about
felt
that.
like we were painting Mahito as like this very weak kid, and I'm like, he's not weak.
Mm,
He created a character where he has to be this dutiful, very supportive son that he's just gonna accept what's happening in front of him, and he's just gonna power through somehow. But he there's chinks in the armor that we get to see like that when he falls asleep. I guess I
yeah.
wanted to say that. I didn't want to paint Mahito as like a very
Right,
emotionally
right.
weak or vulnerable child.
Right, and I can see that. I think that's fair. I can understand the perspective. I thought we were just trying to paint it more as like a boy just trying to get through stuff. But I understand what you're getting at. I do agree that he's much stronger than he comes off. He has a lot of resolve. He's very determined. Even though he's in those uncomfortable moments, he's still trying to be a good, diligent son. Because even when she says, uh, you should start calling me mother," he nods as if like he will do it even though he doesn't want to. It's very clear that like that both are happening at the same time. His uncomfortableness, but then also like you said, his resolve to do whatever he needs to for his dad and like for the family or whatever.
Or
Um,
whatever, indeed.
or for the group for the family dynamic. That yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
why I
no,
said whatever.
no, and I second your whatever, and the reason is because, again, going back to the whole aunt is now mom thing. That's why I said, yeah, you're right. That's perfectly described, or whatever that is.
But yeah, I agree with you. Just to touch on the whole him falling asleep thing, like he finally gets to feel at peace and be himself because he doesn't have to put on the act anymore, right? Like I think this touches upon how everybody puts on a mask in social situations because we try to paint ourselves as something that we think
Mhm.
people should want to see, right?
Yeah,
I think that's just
yeah.
kind of a natural reaction is to try to fit what is expected of us. But in this moment, like you said, he lets loose. He's finally relaxed. He's exhausted. He's tired. He falls asleep. Natsuko sees this and she puts the tea and just lets him sleep. And it's a really nice, intimate moment that we're given. Because, like you said, she gets to see him as he is. Also, one thing that I glossed over, so my bad, everybody, is when he's walking through the house for the first time, the gray heron decides to do the whole fly or right next to them into their pathway that they were and then land in the water. And Natsuko points out, like, oh, this is the first time he's ever done that before. And the heron's just
Yeah.
like, cool, like, I said hello, I did my thing, or whatever. So I thought that was interesting that it was like trying to set up obviously that the heron was going to have a significant part in the story.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It definitely shows its size, right?
Mhm.
Compared to him, it's a big animal. It is kind of scary. It does have gigantic ass claws. But yeah, in itself, it's a very majestic bird to be able to come,
Mhm.
pass by them so close and kind of, she even says, "Oh, it's in its own way, it's giving you its a welcome, to the house."
Yeah.
But also another thing that I forgot that I remembered that kind of creeped me out, but it was kind of like a foreshadowing, was when he falls asleep, right in bed.
Mhm.
We actually see the heron just kind of go and like come up to the window, right?
Oh yeah.
And for a second, it was like a split second too. You see the heron had teeth, and I was like, did that heron just have teeth? But as soon as
Yeah.
like that scene gets cut so quickly because Natsuko comes in with the tea and the snack, right? And
Mhm.
witnesses, Mahito being asleep. But at first I was like, wait a minute, did I just see this heron have teeth? Like, but it was so quick that I was like, wait, do herons have teeth? I was like, maybe they do. Maybe that's normal. Like, I made me like second guess myself. I was like, uh, I didn't think too much of it, but at the same time, it was like, that's not normal. That's weird.
Mhm.
So that kind of foreshadows a little bit also of
Yeah.
what's to come.
And then also after he falls asleep, he dreams of his mother again, saying goodbye to him,
Mm.
and he's crying. And this is again another vulnerable moment, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
because we're allowed to see that he's still tormented by the death of his mom.
Yeah, he still has that trauma. Right.
Yeah. And then I think, isn't it that he goes outside and then he sees the heron again, and then the heron flies off as he tries to get up to it, and then it shows him to where the tower is. Is that jumping too soon?
No, I think that's actually what happens afterwards, right? And he heads out to the tower and tries to make himself in, but the little old ladies and Natsuko immediately are like right behind him, and as he's
Yeah.
trying to make his way in, he's called back and he doesn't go, right?
Yeah,
Um,
because we see the moment where like the heron so I saw it twice. I saw it with the English dub and then with the Japanese dub.
Lucky.
And the second time I saw it, my friend was like, "What?" Because the heron does this thing where it flies up to like this window, and there's like this small little opening, right?
Oh
And then the bird
yeah.
does the weird like dip in, and all like smooth. You're like, "I'm sorry, what? What? How does this bird?" And then the bird just casually looks up again, like, "Oh, did you see me do that? Okay, I just want to make sure you saw me do that." And that's when Mahito's like walking up, and he sees the feathers on in the dirt, and then also at the stairway that he's trying to get into, but it's blocked by debris and by dirt. And that's when the maids are in Natsuko are calling for him, and the maids find him in there saying like, "I hope he didn't go in there. Isn't it sealed off or something?"
Yeah,
Which,
yeah, yeah. Which also, by the way,
yeah.
the feathers from his hand disappear the moment he
Mm-hmm.
leaves that tower, right? Because he had been collecting them as he was, trying to make his way into the tower.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, he's like, "Oh, the feathers, they're gone," right? Because he think
Mm-hmm.
he makes it. There's a point to where he actually even recognizes it and then just moves on. But I think
Mm-hmm.
more and more he's starting to catch on This is weird, and this isn't like a normal like bird.
Yeah, clearly this bird is sinister and is trying to goad him into something, but we're not sure what it is. Which leads into him, I think, who does he have the conversation with about the tower? Is it the maids or is it
I believe it's Natsuko first that has this conversation with him and
Oh, right.
tells him about the tower and the history and their family.
Yeah, because it's the whole like her grand uncle was a very big reader and then disappeared in the tower, and then there was a big flood which broke off all access to the tower or something. Like he had it
Mhm.
built, and then basically decided to stay in there, and then a flood happened, and then everybody was cut off, and nobody goes in there. It's like a eerie, ominous space.
Right. The grand uncle just disappears too, Lane. They said that the only thing that they ever found was one book that was left open that he was last reading. And you're right, everything flooded and it was sealed off just to make sure that nobody would get hurt because there was also a lot of underground
Mhm.
passages within that tower.
Yeah, and I think it that's pretty much where it's left at, right? With that whole conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Eh,
And
yeah,
and then we see him trying to go back to a boy's life, which is normally school,
yeah.
which doesn't seem to go too well for him because I think it's because a lot of the kids that are out there in the countryside, right,
Hmm.
are clearly different from Mahito. Mahito is obviously he looks well groomed. He is with a wealthy family. You know, his entire attire is different from the country
Hmm.
kids, and he has. Well, I was gonna say a dispute, but it's not really a dispute. He just has like a little. He has like a little fight. That's how boys are.
Yeah.
Were. That sounds kind of sexist. Well, that's how we used to be back in when I was growing up. Boys would just kind of like fight it out. And that's what they were doing. They were just kind of like trying to fight it out and, you know, find their place in that weird hierarchy that boys have when you're growing up, you know. Who's stronger? Do I respect you? Do I not respect you? Are you cool enough? You know, and sadly, it didn't go too well for Mahito because, you know, he gets his butt kicked. But by not just one, by a couple, right? I think they all jump him, or is it just
Well,
one guy?
it's just one, but the one thing I wanted to point out and expand upon before we do that is what doesn't help Maito is I think there's some subtext that is left for the viewer to discern. Um,
Mm,
One is his dad's like, let me drive you in the car, in a car because how like that's gonna stand out. And I'm sure for most kids, you don't really want to stand out. You kind of want to
no.
just be there. But like his dad's boasting of his wealth, and I'm sure what a lot of the kids probably have lost a dad or lost a brother or lost someone in the war,
War.
and his dad runs a factory making the shells for the fighter planes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a
True.
duo like slap in the face, like his dad showing off their riches, while also by driving him in the car and then reminding people that he's different than everybody else. Not built different, just he's different. And
Yeah.
that creates immediate alienation from everybody else because, again, everybody else has lost someone in the war, or, it's a reminder of that. And so as he's walking home after school, he has to walk by some kids doing farming, and then
Yeah.
one of the boys like stops him, pushes him. Maito pushes him back, and then that boy jumps him and starts pummeling him while the other kids are standing around him, and I'm sure they join in eventually, um, which resulted, like you said, Maito getting wrecked,
Yeah.
um, because it's just I think it's just the fact that like he's a reminder that the war still isn't done yet for those kids, and
Yeah.
it's they're not angry at him, but they have to be angry at something. And what better target now than the boy of the man who owns a factory that builds the shells for
Yeah.
um, the planes?
Yeah. And you know, I gotta give it to this kid again. He has a lot of foresight. Granted, it wasn't the best choice in a way, but he knew that he was never going to fit in well enough with these kids that after, he walks away from that fight, he stops before he gets home, grabs a rock, and he actually pummels himself with the rock on the side of his head and just opens up this huge wound, and he's just bleeding. He's just like showered with blood, and then he keeps going. He keeps going on his way home, right? And as soon as he gets home, they all find him just like drenched in blood, right? And he has this huge scar on the side of his head, and he makes the situation, which was like, yeah, it was like a fight between boys, but it wasn't it wasn't super bad. Makes it worse, so that what happens, right? He doesn't have to go to school, because that's what happens. Right after that, after he gets that wound taken care of, he goes through this whole also like weird what's it called, fever dreams and stuff, right? Because the ultimate result is that he doesn't have to go to school anymore, because they don't want him to be hurt by these country bumpkins, right?
Yeah.
Basically, kind of how the dad puts it.
Yeah, because the dad's like, tell me who it is, and I'll take care of it. Don't worry. Which, by the way, I'm sorry, everybody, real quick, but if you watch the English dub, I don't know what was going on with Christian Bale. I don't know what made him decide this, but for some reason, he made the dad have this weird, off-putting pseudo New York accent, to where I was like sitting there going like, is it just me, or does it sound like he lived in Jersey, thinks he lived in New York, and like pretends to be in New York, but really he's a New Jersey guy, but he lives in Japan? Am I hearing this right? So it's really weird, but like his dad basically is like, tell me who it is, and I'll make sure it gets taken care of. And Maito's like telling a lie by saying it was nothing, I tripped, that's all it was. Which this movie, I think one of the central tenets is believing in a lie, or like the little lies that we tell to keep moving forward in life. And so his dad's like, nope, I'm gonna go find out who did it, and like runs off to like go handle it or whatever.
Quote unquote handle it.
Yeah. And then we see another shot where he has an infection from his wound, because naturally, and the doctor like does everything that they can to sew it, and then puts a bandage on it, and he's resting. The grannies are like, we'll watch over him, we'll make sure he's fine. And then he wakes up, and I believe the heron lands on the windowsill when he's awake, and is just like, Maito, your presence is requested. And he's like, mother, like making fun of Maito. And then Maito tries to close
nice
the
voice
window.
acting, by the way, Abu.
Oh, thank you. I wish I could match Robert Pattinson.
But
yeah, he closes the window, Natsuko helps him, and then he falls back into his bed or whatever. And then he gets up another time because it's something that happens again. Or maybe I'm mixing these two up, but essentially it leads to Maito taking a wooden sword to like knock out the heron, right?
yeah,
Because he's like, I've had enough of this weird ass heron deciding to like hang out with me and cause trouble.
yeah, he calls out the heron by like, I know that you're not a normal heron.
Yeah.
Like there's something evil and twisted about you. I can feel it and I can see it, right? And then, the heron finally starts talking to him more and more, telling him mocking him, telling him that his mom's not really dead, to follow him, to go with him. Again, trying to lure him. Mahito obviously knows that it's a trick or whatever, but, this kid is brave. I'm sorry, but at his age, I would have not have tried to fight a herring. Dude, like that's weird. Like, no.
Right?
This kid has balls, man. Even if I had like a wooden sword, which by the way, that bird destroyed.
Yeah, dude, that heron was flying at him at like really fast speeds. And he had a good swing. He was accurate. But that heron just bit off half the sword and then just like chewed it up like it was nothing. That was crazy to watch.
Yeah, again, not something 10-year-old Silver would have done at
Yeah.
all. 10-year-old Silver would have been like, I'm just staying in bed. I'm
Yeah.
cool. I'm good. I'm good right here. This is where I live. This is
Yeah.
this is me now.
But like, oh
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
no, go on. I've been
No,
talking so much. No, I'm
no.
not gonna let you bully
Oh,
me into talking this time. It's your turn.
I
Go.
had nothing to say. That's the thing. Go ahead. I had nothing to
But
say on Boo. I'm gonna go get an
anyway,
skid. Give me another L, please.
but what's interesting is that Natsuko shoots an arrow at the heron while this is happening because there's this weird situation going where all the like fish run like
Oh
join
yeah.
us, and the toads are climbing going like join us at the castle, and so like the maids in Natsuko just act like it's normal, and then just shoot an arrow, and it's like oh how peculiar. Are you okay? While he passes out from the exertion. And I think what's interesting is like the way that they use water to transition him into the bed, and the symbolism of that, of like washing away what feelings, and also kind of like similar to what we're gonna see later in the movie, where he wakes up and he's like, "What happened? What's going on?" and all this other stuff. And
Mhm.
and yeah, he wakes up. I think he goes to dinner with the grannies, and then he's eating, and then the older guy has like a cigarette, and Kiriko, one of the maids, is looking at him like, "You have a cigarette?" And he's just like, he says it's made of some sort of like seasoning, and then what offers it to her, and she's like, "I wouldn't. It's not nicotine. It's not for me or whatever." But
Yeah.
he's
It's
told
like gross. Yeah.
to. Oh, sorry, I skipped something. His dad comes in when he wakes up and says something like, "You should go talk to Natsuko because she has been worried about you and she wants to make sure that you're okay, but she's been ill, so she's bedridden." And then the maid tells him that after he finishes his meal and says, "You should go see Lady Natsuko because she's been taken by morning sickness. She's bedridden, but like she worries about you. Please go talk to her."
Yeah.
And again, like what you point out, is he doesn't want to do it, but he's also like the diligent son in that he's like, I'm gonna go do it because I've been
Obligated.
asked to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes up to her, and you see a very vulnerable moment when he goes up to her, right? Um, and she starts talking to him, and she says like, "I'm sorry I didn't protect you." She starts talking to his mother. She like figuratively starts talking to his mother, saying like, "She wanted me to protect you. I'm sorry that I failed to do so." And Maito has like no emotion. He's just like, "Please get well soon," and then walks out. But he grabs the cigarette box to like um to which we find out later
Bargain. Yeah.
bargain, yeah. So
Um,
why don't you lead us more in?
no, no. I wanted to go back. I think there was a vulnerable. I think from what I saw, I thought Mahito kind of also had a vulnerable moment there because that entire scene reminded him maybe a little bit of like his mom that was in the hospital because she does touch his face in the side, and for a second
Oh, that's
he kind
right.
of he breaks out of that like stern diligent son for a moment, and that touch, at least it looked like to me, the way that she touches the side of his head, it almost feels to me like he was remembering his mother's touch, right? And then
Yeah.
she starts crying, like you said, I should have taken better care of you. The Natsuko crying out to, the late mother. Um, and that's where he kind of comes back to the whole, stern Mahito, and it's like, I hope you get better, and then walks away. And you're right. He takes those cigarettes from his dad
Yeah.
to try and bargain, because one of the things that he's been learning, right, is that the resources are scarce, right? And one of the biggest resources that they all seem to always be bringing up is tobacco, right?
Hmm.
So he again, this kid is smart. This kid is very in tune with everything. He's very intelligent. He already knows immediately what he can bargain with these adults. He's already has the the knowledge to know that how to bargain with these adults, right? And it's tobacco, right?
Yeah.
And he gets this knife and he gets it sharpened by the old man and bargains with him by giving him the cigarettes that he took from his dad's room when he left Natsuko's room. And the old man shows him how to sharpen the knife to get this knife nice and sharpened, because ultimately, Mahito sees that he's going to have to deal with this heron, that something's wrong with it. Something's weird about it. So he uses that knife to start making these arrows. And why arrows? Because Natsuko, in his dream, fever dream, which actually we ended up finding out that it kind of was true, because we kind of skipped over it. But the sword, we had said that it was broken by the heron. Well, when he goes back into the closet, he sees the sword that's like not broken, but as he picks it up, it crumbles. So in reality, it did happen. It wasn't a fever dream, right? But one of the little old ladies cleans it up and tries to play it off like, "Oh, this is so weird. I wonder how it happens. So many weird things happen in this house." Ha ha.
Yeah.
But when Natsuko saved him from that fever dream, quote unquote, she used the bow and arrow to kind of defeat the heron or scare it away. So in his mind was like, I can use a bow and arrow, so I'm going to make my own. So that's why he wanted the old man to show him how to sharpen this knife so that he can, learn how to cut this bamboo into a bow and then make arrows. Which, by the way, holy shit, this kid made a bow, a very good one, by the way, because when I was young, growing up in Mexico, I made my own bow too. My dad showed me how. It was really fun to do these sort of things, because I guess that's what you did back in the day, especially when you didn't have toys. You just make things. So my dad taught me how to make a bow and how to make arrows, and I used to make my own arrows too. So watching this was kind of cool in a way, because I can relate how that was. And because I have a little bit of knowledge of how to do that, it was crazy for me to watch how he made a pretty good bow, man. That was a pretty good bow, in my opinion. And I could recognize that the bow was actually he I don't know if he learned it because his dad Soichi is an engineer and maybe taught him at some point, but the bow was very well made, and I was pretty surprised. I also liked how he was kind of reasoning out the arrow and why the arrow wasn't flying, because he carves the arrow, right, and everything, and he tries shooting it, but he notices that the arrow just kind of it flies off, but not straight. It flails, right? So he's like, I wonder why. And, and he starts to that brain, I guess by inheritance because of his dad, starts to figure out what's going on. Again, this kid is smart. Some kids, you I guess you can tell what kind of person you are by these types of mental exercises, right? Some kids might just give up, or maybe they'll say it's too hard, or maybe they don't have the creativity, or maybe they'll move on to another task. Or some kids might break the bow, might break the arrow, and they're like, fuck this, But this kid was like, no, hold on. This is still, again, focusing on the goal, figuring out what's going on. And then eventually he comes to the conclusion that it needs it needs a guide, right, at the end of the bow of the arrow. But before that, before I keep jumping, the old lady, what's her name?
Kiriko.
Hiriko.
Kiriko.
Kiriko.
Kiriko. Yeah.
Kiriko. Okay, the old lady Kiriko saw that the other old man got tobacco from Mahito. So he's like, hey, you want a real bow? You want some real arrows that, will actually work or whatever? I can hook you up with them. Don't worry. Nobody will know that they'll go missing for the, for the easy price of, some tobacco. But, Mahiko tells him that he doesn't have anything and that he gave them all to the old man and that it's fine. He'll figure it out on his own. Right.
Yeah. Well, because to expand on that real quick, if you don't mind, is the moment when he goes to see Lady Natsuko, he actually could have taken her bow in that moment, and no one
Mhm.
would have noticed. But we know that Maito is he likes to be self-sufficient. I think that's what he gets from his dad, Soichi, is like he wants to build it on his own and he wants to do it his own way. So hence the cigarette pack, and then giving it to the guy to sharpen his blade so he could cut the bamboo enough to where he could build it to where it could bow and bend as he needed for the bow. Um, and yeah, and then it was funny because Kiriko the whole time she's like, "Hey, I can help you get that," and he's just like,
Yeah.
"There's only." I gave the whole pack to the guy because there's only 2 more cigarettes left anyway. But like one of the things that's interesting in this moment is I believe as he's building the oh no, that's jumping it. Never mind. But what I like that we see is him being so resourceful with like using different parts of the bamboo for like the bow, and then the little thin smaller one for the arrow, and then breaking a nail to make it as the arrow tip.
Yeah.
And like you said, like testing it out and figuring out what was wrong. And then I forget how he finds the feather, but he finds a couple of the heron's feathers, and then realizes that he needs that to like to give it more of an aerial, to be able to like fly better, basically.
Yeah, to be able to
And
guide the arrow and not let it flail, right?
yeah, and then he's in, and again, Maito's very resourceful. He's like, oh, we've got like rice downstairs or like mochi, so he takes like a piece of mochi and then uses it as a binder for the feathers to go into the arrow, so that way it's glued in. The kid is like it's so cool to watch the way that this kid's mind works and how determined he is to do this. It's a very good insight into the way that he thinks, and it's cool that the audience is allowed to to see that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, the kid is super patient, and again, he has the mind of an engineer, because he was like somewhere between 8 and 10, right? And the kid already knows that this arrow is not moving straight, so I need something to set it straight. What is light enough? Oh, feather. Well, you know what? I have the stupid herring's feathers. I could use them and put them on this. And then like, whoa, what can I use it to stick? Oh, sticky rice. And oh, I know there's some sticky rice in the kitchen. Runs to the kitchen, grabs some of that, chews it more, makes it stickier, and then uses it as glue. It's like, dude, this kid thought of that all on his own.
Yeah.
No adult helped them figure this all out. Like, this kid was doing everything. This kid armed himself. Okay. This kid literally armed himself against this weird, evil looking bird to be able to take it down. He did not need anybody. It was crazy to me how ingenious of this kid, how brave he is to be able to want to do all these things.
Yeah.
But before we can continue any further, we're gonna go ahead and go ahead.
One other thing that is a tiny detail, like a blink if you miss it thing, is as he's building the arrow, he sees Natsuko venturing into the woods, but he doesn't pay any mind to it. Remember?
Yeah.
He does the whole like, okay, she's going out there, whatever. I'm more focused on getting this arrow taken care of, and I want to end it on this note, if it's okay, Silver.
Yeah.
The last thing the thing that I like about this moment is, as he's working on it, he knocks over some books, and then he starts picking them up, and then he finds the book How Do You Live? And he sees a note, which is a very interesting wording, right? It says, to the grown-up Maito from Mom. And then he decides to start reading it. And I thought it was so interesting that it says to the grown-up Maito. Because it could have just said to Maito, but instead it says to the grown-up Maito. And it was like, oh, interesting. So that was another detail I thought that was kind of peculiar. and
Yeah.
and we'll get into the reason why that is significant later.
Oh yeah. Which will blow your minds. No, you're right. He even says it's like, oh, I guess my mom wrote this to me, right? Because he recognizes her letter. But going back to really quickly, you're right. Again, Miyazaki being a genius that he is, the way again with what happened with, at least to me, with the heron and the teeth, those quick takes. Right?
Yeah.
Like, because he's going through the motion. We're going through the motions of Mahito making the bow and everything, and then he quickly inserts that Natsuko going into the forest, and we don't make a big deal about it. At least to me, it wasn't. To me, it was like, oh, I guess she's going for a walk. Cool, whatever. You know, I'm watching this kid get ready to fight this heron with this makeshift bow. And it ends up being something much bigger. But again, kudos to Miyazaki, the way that he was able to do that sort of like, what's the word? What magicians do? The sleight of hand.
Yeah.
You know, that like he turns her attention to something else. So it seems like magic to us, right? So the way he's able to do that with Natsuko's thing, and which we'll discuss in the next episode, is just like, I was like, dude, this was wow. Way to go, Miyazaki. That was crazy. Way to fucking pull a magician move on me, man. That was great.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Take us home, Mambu. Take us home, right? Let's close out the tab.
No, you're right. I was just trying to think if there was anything else to get add to that, but anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have enjoyed ringing in the new year with us, trying out this special meat that we're going to use to bring control. I mean, what? The special meal to enjoy. Thank you to Skitty for making that for everybody and finding the magical spells to make it happen. But really, thank you everybody so much for the support. It goes without saying that this podcast would not be where it is without you all and without you following us in our journey as we continue gallivanting on different things like The Last of Us to The Boy and the Heron. So a big cheers to you all. Before we tell you, like we do all the time, pay your freaking tabs. We're going to be watching every single one of you before you leave.
Or the cat will hunt you down.
Exactly. So again, follow us on our socials, which is Twitter. Follow us on on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube Music. If you like us, please subscribe to us. And if you don't like us, then give us to your haters. We will take your haters anytime. Gladly. But take care of yourselves, everybody. Please enjoy yourself as you go into 2024. And we will see you when we see you as we continue further on discussing The Boy and the Heron.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.